everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be about books I want to reread, because recently I've gotten into the habit of rereading some of my favorite books, and it's been such an amazing experience that I want to continue in the upcoming year. So the books I'm going to show you today are all books I've already read and that I would like to read again over the next 6 months or the next year. I don't know for how long, but now and then I would like to just pick up a book I know I'm going to love, and these are the titles I look forward to. The first series I would like to highlight is the Millennium series by Stieg Larsson. The first one is called The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and I've already reread this one this month. So my plan is to reread the next two in the series over this summer. This series for some reason reminds me of summer. I read it the first time around when it was the summer break and I loved it. I also watched all the Swedish movies, so I'm eager to finally read it again. The first book, the first reread was amazing, and it validated my opinion of it, being that it is an amazing crime fiction series. Next book is a book I must reread. I mean, I read it the first time around at university and it was a book that astounded me. The book I'm talking about is American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't, but this book, as I said, really fascinated me, but in a troublesome way, because it is about a serial killer who is so brutal that you can't even imagine it. And I really must give this a reread, because even though it scared the crap out of me, I was also fascinated, as I said. The Storied Life of A.J. Vickery by Gabrielle Sevin. This is the Danish cover. I read it the first time around a couple of years ago and fell in love with it. This is a book for book lovers, because it is about this bookstore, and it is about this man who one day finds a little girl all alone in his bookstore, and then he has to take care of her. This is a book that will touch you. It certainly touched me, and it's one that I want to pick up again. Next we have Commonwealth by Anne Patchett. This book I read quite recently, but it's one of those books that I feel like I want to read again very soon for some reason. So this one is about family affairs, and it's about how one event can change things for everyone, and how that can have repercussions for a lot of people over the next years. It's a really phenomenal book, and it's one that I loved immediately. Then we have The Sunlight Pilgrims by Ginny Fagan, which was also really interesting, because this one is more of a post-apocalyptic story in which the world has come into a new ice age, and people have to survive according to these new and very harsh conditions, very cold conditions. Now, the scary thing about this book is that it takes place about 5 years from now, and that just made it seem very close to our world today, I think. So definitely a book that intrigued me. I loved it so much, and that's why it's on this list. Now, I believe I have one classic that I would like to revisit, and that's because the first time I read it, I quite liked it, but maybe I just have a feeling that I might have read it a little bit too fast, so that I didn't enjoy it thoroughly. And that is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. A lot of people adore this book, and I really liked it as well, but I didn't adore it. So I want to read it again and see if it's just me or if I was actually reading it too fast. As far as I remember, most of this book is an epistolary, and it's about Helen, who writes these letters or diary entries, I can't remember. Obviously it's going to be good for me to reread this one, but I remember it was very shocking, very twisting, and also very intriguing. Next we have a book that got me started on Anne Tyler's writing and made me fall in love with her, and that is A Spool of Blue Thread, which I really have to reread it. I loved it the first time around, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to love it the second time around as well. It's a book about family, and it's a book about everyday problems, but it's written so beautifully that you just can't help but fall in love with these characters and with Anne Tyler's storytelling. A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. Now the reason why I want to reread this one is because I have a feeling, once again I have this feeling that I didn't love it as much as I could have if I had maybe spent a little more time with it the first time around. So I remember this is a coming of age story, and it's one of those books that everyone seems to love. I personally liked it, but I didn't fall in love with it. But maybe I will this second time around, who knows. However, the next book I completely fell in love with the first time around, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. So many things happened in this book that makes me want to reread it. It's a book that really touched me and surprised me, and it's a book that I really want to revisit, just because I felt like I was kind of numbed when I read it the first time around. So many things were happening and my feelings were all over the place, so that this second time around I will hopefully have a better grip on my feelings and emotions and read it with new eyes maybe. Then we have The Interestings by Meg Wolitzer, which I would preferably like to read over the summer, because the first time I read it was during the summer, and it's kind of a summary kind of book, I believe, because it's about this group of friends whom we meet at a summer camp when they are young, and then some years later we get to follow them as they grow up in and around New York. And it's about how they are very interesting, but are they that interesting? That's the question. Really good book. I want to read it again. I also have a huge desire to reread all of Donna Tartt's books, meaning that we have here The Secret History and The Little Friend, as well as, of course, The Goldfinch. All three books were phenomenal, but also very different. If you know Donna Tartt, you know that her writing style is absolutely beautiful, and that's one of the reasons why I want to reread these books, but also because, as I said, the stories are so different from each other, so that it won't feel like I'm reading the same book by the same author over and over again. It's going to be completely different reading experiences, and I look forward to that. And also I know it's going to be amazing books. Then we have Mariana by Monica Dickens, which now, as I think of it, is also a classic on my list. This one I read last summer. I fell in love with it. I read it in a day, and for some reason I can't explain what it is about this book that made me love it so much, but it became my favorite book of last year. So I have to reread it so that I can explain to you what it is about this story that makes it so beautiful. The Tidal Zone by Sarah Maas, an absolute must read. This one is about being a parent and having a child who all of a sudden stops breathing, and she is revived, but the doctors can't figure out what happened to her and how you can prevent it from happening again. So it's a very scary world to live in as a parent, and it was a beautiful piece of work. I kind of miss it, and I want to read it again. And then the last book is by one of my favorite authors, and that is Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. This is, as far as I remember, my favorite book of his. There are quite a few of his that I absolutely love, but this one is my favorite. So I would like to read it again and see if it still takes the place of my favorite books of his. I have so many books behind me on my shelves which I have bought, and some of them I have absolutely loved, so I see no reason to not pick them up again and enjoy them, since I own them and since they are there waiting to be read again. Thank you so much for watching, and until my next video, happy reading or happy rereading. That was clever, right?